Good afternoon.
All right.
Hi.
So, hi, everybody. I see Christine and TJ and Diana and Sam and Jada. Welcome. All right. Let's talk about anatomy and physiology. I'm going to do a combination of things on this call. Some lecture, talking, some maybe there might be a doodle or two. We'll see. And then I've got a few slides that I want to show you. They're not quite as colorful as my usual, trademark Becca slideshows, but they're from Pearson, which is a company that does textbooks and massage related educational materials. And so they've made some slides that I can also use. So it'll be a little bit of helpful review of the organization of body systems. So does anybody know the word taxonomy? If I say that word, do you know what I'm talking about?
Isn't that like preserving dead animals or something?
That is taxidermy. So you've got
okay, sorry.
some similar letters there. That's okay. Good guess. Taxonomy is how to organize biological organisms so that you can understand their relationship to each other and give them names. So if you know the name for humans is Homo sapiens, that is our designation within taxonomy. So in the grand scheme of the tree of life, we try to learn about all the other life forms and ourselves by giving them a kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So our genus and species are Homo sapiens. And so every other organism has their own genus and species and other, previous things to that, group, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom. So they have those things too, but we usually refer to things by their genus and species most often. So that's a name that you'll see if you ever buy your essential oils from somebody that really tells you the details about it. You preferably do know the genus and species of the plant that's in the bottle. So you'll see that. If you're somebody who gardens, you'll see the genus and species of a plant on the seed packet, or usually, or when you're trying to look up a plant, it'll tell you what it is. So I know I really love this app on my phone that says it's called PlantNet, and there's another one that's something else. I forgot the name of the other one, but there's several apps you can use to take a picture of a plant and it'll tell you what it is. I just love that. So I can discover edible things in my yard, or medicinal ones, or good things that make a good tea in my yard. So you will see on those when you learn about them from the app that their genus and species are listed. So you can tell, it's in the Brassica family. So you don't know the genus and species, but you know the family. So you've got the general group that it's in. So it's going to be related to all the other ones in that family. So it's kind of cool. I kind of like to geek out on it a little bit, but just as a general way of organizing everyone, this is a way we look at the world. So we like to break things down from macro, which is large view, to micro, which is the small view. Once we get to, this is a human being, this is the genus and species that it is, then we can look at it from an organism. So each individual, you are each an organism, which interestingly is actually a collection of organisms. Only about 40% or something like that of the cells in your body are you cells. Most of them are tiny other microscopic life forms that make up parts of your body, like your gut bacteria. All over your body you have flora and fauna that are everywhere in your body, making up what makes you work. So if you've ever heard somebody talking about trying to give up sugar, and they don't want to feed the bad bacteria, the ones that love to eat sugar. It's actually literally true. Like, that's how it works. When you feed your body a lot of sugar, for example, the gut bacteria that like to eat sugar can breed and grow and proliferate, and so there are more of them in there, and then they're like wanting it more, so they're asking for more sugar because they want more. And so that's why you have that craving for it. But then if you starve them out by not eating any sugar at all for a set amount of time, some longer period of time, a couple weeks, then it starts to make those bacteria starve out because they don't have that sugar to feed them. And then other bacteria that like something else that you're eating instead will grow. So you can feed the bacteria you want to live in your gut, because we're mostly bacteria. So it's interesting, like, what part of me is me? Is my brain, the thoughts I'm having, is that me, or is that my, hungry sugar bacteria talking? So just an interesting thought for you. But as a general way of looking at taxonomy, we usually look at the biology of the complexity of a human being as the human organism. So even though that encompasses other organisms within it, for the purposes of this, we're just going to say the organism is you. That's the whole body that makes up you. And then within the organism that's you have organs, systems. So that's where we talk about like the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, the nervous system, the digestive system. So all of those systems are not just one organ, but they're parts of the body that work together as a system. So the organ system makes up the organism. And then, of course, if you break it down further, then each of those organ systems is made up of organs. So you have organs in the body, and those can be just separated out as an organ, one piece here and there. Lungs, brain, stomach, kidneys, those are all specific organs. And then breaking it down even further, if you take your magnifying glass or microscope and go in even closer, you see tissues. So histology, hist means tissues. Histology is the study of tissues. When we look at tissues, we have to go into a microscopic view. So we have to get out a microscope to look at them, to see them. Those are our epithelial tissues, like the skin. The nervous tissue, which is like the axons that make up our nerves, our nerve cells, our muscle tissue, and our connective tissue. And then going down even further in the microscope, so closer down in, looking at the microscope, we can see cells. So each cell that makes up your tissues can be separated out. And so did all of you see a cell in a microscope during grade school or high school at some time? I know I did a few times. I really liked biology, so I studied some cells under a microscope. Did anybody else ever have that experience? Like a plant
I did.
cell?
I felt like biology was interesting, but hard to test on,
Yeah, it was hard. It was a complex subject, but pretty cool to put a slide of a little plant
That was
cell.
so long ago for me, I barely remember.
It's a foggy dream memory back there, huh? Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting to see the cells and cell walls, and you can actually get a look at them under a microscope, even the kinds that they have in schools that aren't necessarily the highest magnification that you can get. So you can look at a cell under a microscope pretty easily and see that there are different types: muscle cells, nerve cells, epithelial cells. And then within each cell, we've all seen those pictures of parts of a cell, right? There's a cell wall that holds it all together, holds it all in. The mitochondria, does anybody remember the nickname for the mitochondria? Has anybody ever heard this? The powerhouse of the cell.
Oh, yes.
That stuck with me forever. I'll never forget that. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's like, if I never remember anything else about it, I'll remember that.
Is that the one that exports and imports waste? Is that the one that? No, that's not it.
I don't think so. That's more like the endoplasmic reticulum.
Oh, the reticulum.
Yeah, I think that's my understanding of it. But the mitochondria generates the power for it. So it's the powerhouse.
Powerhouse. Her.
Powerhouse. Yeah, and you inherit your mitochondria from your mother, apparently. I've heard that. So whatever that's worth to you, there you go. So the nucleus of the cell, that's where all the DNA is stored. And the ribosomes, these are like little storage pockets that stick onto the parts of the cell. So these are organelles. They're, it's like an organ. So if they're let's see if I can say this sentence properly. The organelles are to cells what organs are to organisms. So the way you are an organism and you have organs, the cell would be like an organism that also has organelles, so the little organs. Molecules are the next level. If you break down the organelles of a cell into the microscope, then you're getting into like really small particles. You're going to get into some chemistry to have to distinguish those from each other. So then you're getting into molecules of sugars, proteins, and water that make up organelles in a cell. So if you break down those organelles, they're made up of little combinations of molecules. And then the smallest that we know of, besides like quantum physics stuff, which we do not get into in massage therapy, the smallest one that we go into is atoms or ions. So atoms and ions are things like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, which make up molecules. So if you have the smallest type of thing that we can break something down into, an atom of hydrogen, and you got a couple of those, and you have an oxygen molecule. You stick those together, you've got what? What did I just make with that recipe? 2 hydrogens and an oxygen?
Water.
Water.
Yeah, water. So then you have a molecule of water. So atoms clump together. So you got 2 hydrogens and an oxygen that clump together, and they make up a molecule of water. And then the molecule of water clumps together with some other ones and some other things, some other different kinds of molecules. And then those make up an organelle. And then you've got, part of a mitochondria, an organelle for a cell. So they just keep building together until we build these building blocks up, and that creates such a complex system, which is us, the organism of us. All substances are made out of atoms. They are in everything and they make up everything. It's just the smallest thing that we can observe, at least on some easy level. And they're arranged into molecules in specific patterns and structures. The cell is that basic unit of structure and function in a human organism. And then cells are organized into groups or layers called tissues. And then the groups of tissues are called organs. Groups of organs are called organ systems, and then the organ systems form the organism. So we are studying the organism of the human, the body, in therapeutic massage, although sometimes we also study non-human massage, like equine massage is a very big industry. And other non-humans also appreciate massage. Anybody ever given their cat or dog or other domestic companion, a non-human companion, a massage? Raise your hand. Surprisingly, you have, Jada?
Yes, I had a dog. He was a boxer, and I would be giving my mom a massage, and he would just hop up on like the chair or the ottoman, and he would just sit there and we like rub on his back and like his hind legs, and it was like the cutest, hilarious thing ever.
Yeah, they love it, right? He loved it. They sense the same stuff that we are learning about and feeling when we do massage or receive massage. We understand that it's calming and relaxing. Well, they feel that exact same stuff. They're not that different than us. So they appreciate it too. And especially once you learn that particular organism's preferences, you can customize your massage to be comforting for them. So I've done massage on arthritic dogs, and oh my gosh, they really love it. Like the hips, especially on many dogs, get really painful. So they love to have massage. And I have my 2 cats. My boys love massage. They get massages regularly. And sometimes I'll bust out new moves. Sometimes it's just a unconscious petting, but sometimes it's like, we're sitting there and I'll do like some cranial circles, and then I'll work down the spinal muscles and start to do some different moves that I haven't done before, using lighter strokes, some finger combing, or some waving motions. I mean, just trying out some different stuff. So it can be kind of fun to explore touch that way, and they will appreciate being your practice test subject as well. Usually, if you do something and they give you a cue that they don't like it, then you've learned something about their preferences, right? So in talking about the cells, I want to get inside of them a little bit. This is where the possible doodle might come in. So I'm not sure how this will work, but bear with me a little bit, and I'm going to try. I believe there's a notebook or something like I can doodle on this. Let's see. I admit I did it on a phone once, but I haven't done it on the laptop, so I'm not sure if I can. Show meeting notes. Is that going to be it? Nope, that's not it. Okay, well, that might...
I have a question real quick. So our hardback theory and practice book is technically not ours, correct?
No, that one is yours. You get to keep it.
Okay, so which were the books that we were supposed to just be renting? Did we get all those?
I don't know if you got them, because they were like a medical dictionary, which I don't think you got this time.
Okay, we didn't get any of them then.
Yeah, I used to use it more like in class, like here's a list of med terms, look them up and write down the definition. But you're all at home. I figured you can just Google it.
Okay, so the books that we did receive are all our books.
Yeah, they're all yours. Mod 3, when we do nutrition, there's a book that is a borrowed book, but we're not there yet, so we haven't gotten that one.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. No problem. Well, I don't see any way to draw something for you. So I'm just going to show you a drawing that's on my paper. It's like less exciting that way, but oh well. Okay, how do I return to the call? I'm lost in my computer. Let's see if I can get back.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, you're not alone if you're lost in your computer. I've been there too. Okay, so here's a super cool drawing. It's probably better than what I would draw by myself on a touchpad thing. So anyway, just the general picture of a cell. The cell membrane is the wall. The nucleus is the main important storage facility in the middle. That makes it run. Not the powerhouse, but the place where all the info is. And then the cytoplasm is the gelatinous, gooey middle. That's the liquid inside. That's the drawing. I guess it's a lot quicker doing it that way. Inside that cytoplasm, there are a lot of different parts, which are the cytoplasmic organelles. So those are the smaller organs within the cell. And our human bodies are composed of about 100 trillion, with a T, cells that develop from that single fertilized cell that was you a long time ago. Cells all start off the same. Stem cells, that's the stem, like the stem of a flower. The beginning of it is the same, and then differentiation happens. So they become different from each other in their composition and function as they grow, and then they're nourished, and they'll divide into similar cells to each other. Once they differentiate, they'll start becoming clumps of those kind of cells. When they divide, generally that's mitosis. So mitosis is when a cell is dividing in order to produce a new cell. It divides in half and reproduces. In the human body, some cells will reproduce continuously and some do it occasionally and some don't at all. For example, the cells of your skin and your intestinal lining are exposed to constant wear and tear, so they're always continuously reproducing. On the other hand, your nerve cells are incapable of self-repair after injury or disease. So that's why nerve damage is so much more serious, because it can't usually be repaired at all. Sometimes after a damage to a nerve, some feeling can come back, but if it doesn't come back after 2 or 3 years, it's probably not going to come back, sadly. So cells form and reproduce and then eventually die, and that's their life cycle. Dying cells is called apoptosis. They pop like a little balloon of, or a little bubble of soap, you know. You blew a soap bubble and it pops, apoptosis. Your cells go away after a while, they die. And then there are 5 stages in mitosis. Well, before I go into that, the difference between the 2 different types of cells, you've probably remembered this, but mitosis is when cells reproduce that are most of your body cells. The only ones that are different are meiosis, reproduction of cells, which is the reproductive cells. So when you create an egg, or when a partner who's male would produce a sperm, those have to be half of the DNA, because if they combine and create a new person, you've got the correct amount of DNA. So that's not mitosis, it's meiosis. So there's 2 different types of cell reproduction. The most common one is mitosis, but the one with egg and sperm creation is meiosis. Then we have the cell stages of mitosis. So when the cell starts off, it begins with interphase. There's 46 chromosomes in the center. That's when most of the cell growth takes place. And in that phase, the chromosomes exist in thin little threads. I think you can see them there. There's some thin little threads. And there's 46 of them. Oops, this side. 46. And then the second stage is prophase. So interphase is inter because it's between phases. So if we're starting somewhere, we're going to pick that gap between when a new one starts. So the next phase is the beginning. So it's the prophase. It's going in. It's beginning. It's proactively starting, I guess you could say. So the chromosomes become enlarged and coil up, forming chromatids. So you can see. It says here that they be doubled to 92, and you can see that they've doubled. The nuclear membrane disappears, so that membrane around the beginning of it kind of thins and goes away, so that there's some ability to get inside there, penetrate into the nucleus. And then in the next metaphase, pro-metaphase is like another way of dividing it up even further, which is when that nucleus dissolves, and then microtubules attach to centromeres. So there's centromeres on the side which help facilitate this separation that's going to happen. So these spindle fibers start to form where that nucleus disappeared, the lining of it, and so these can attach, and this is going to start helping metaphase happen. So in metaphase, those chromosomes line up in the center of the cell, and then the nuclear membrane and nucleolus are gone, so that those centromeres can attach. So the chromosomes are aligned at the center of the cell, and they're ready to do something. Looks like a line dance is about to happen. Then when you get into the next one called anaphase, anaphase is when those chromatids are separated, and so then they will not be chromatids anymore. They're going to become chromosomes again. The centromeres pull those chromosomes apart, so they split up the X's back into little V's, half of the chromosomes again on each side. So this is in order to create two cells that have half of that DNA, that 96 half. You want to make it back into 43 again. So the last stage is when you're about to have those two cells again. You've got telophase. It's like a telescope expanding outward and making a long thing, a long cell, because you've got your cytoplasm dividing into two parts and two sets of chromosomes. Now they each have 43. So there are microtubules that disappear and the cell division begins. So they've separated across the cell into two sides. And then at the end, you've got the cytokinesis, where it's creating a cell. So kinesis means creating, and cyto means cell. So two daughter cells are formed that each have 46 chromosomes. So now you've got two cells that look just like that first one, and they're going to be in the interphase stage. So they're getting ready to start back up at the beginning. The way I have remembered this, I don't know, it's not really sophisticated or anything. It's kind of dumb, but dumb things sometimes help us remember. The first letter of the stages that I want you to remember, interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase, is IPMAT. So IPMAT, or IP on a mat. I don't know. It's not very sophisticated, like I said. But if you remember those letters, that might help you stick it in your brain to remember which order those phases go in. So the activity of a cell, you could say, goes into three categories. It's vegetative, when it's just maintaining itself, absorption, assimilation, excretion of waste products. It's just hanging out like a vegetable, just doing the basic stuff. Then it goes into another kind of category of activity called growth and reproduction. So that's when there's a new structure added to the cell and mitosis occurs in that growth and reproduction phase. And then it also has specialized activities that it can do in another category of action. So that's referring to the different functions that each cell has, different from other cells. So a muscle cell contracts, a skin cell secretes or absorbs, a nerve cell transmits nerve impulses. They all have different functions, and so they are specialized activities as well. Metabolism is the complex process in which cells are nourished and carry out their various activities. And so each cell is kind of like a little small factory doing its own functions, and that's metabolism. So as they do that, there are waste products, there are good products that the cell puts out that the body uses, and then the waste products are things that the body has to get rid of. Usually they're molecules like carbon dioxide or something like that, nitrogen. So nitrogenous waste usually comes out in your urine. Carbon dioxide usually comes out through your lungs, through your breathing. So these are waste products that might be produced by that little factory of your cell. And that's what we talk about for massage clients. Make sure you drink a lot of water because your body's always trying to get rid of waste, right? Metabolism creates waste. So any body processes, you're going to have metabolic waste, and you want to make sure that your body's getting enough water to excrete out the waste that it creates, and encouraging people to hydrate their body functions. Always a good idea.
Question. So when it comes to metabolizing things, is that why some people metabolize things quicker than others? Is because they're more energetic, more healthy? Do those things kind of go together, or
Yeah,
is it just your chemical makeup?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex factors, complex set of factors that goes into it. Each person's going to operate a little differently, but most of it has to do with how they are they treating their body well? Are they getting enough water to be able to process things? Are they moving their bodies around so that metabolism can happen, or is it more stagnated? That does make a big difference.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, that's a good question. And there are two phases of metabolism. So that metabolism that you're doing all the time, your body is just little factories are always working, but there's two phases to it. So one of them is anabolism. That's the good stuff. That's the buildup. Anabolism is when they're building up larger molecules from smaller ones, and it requires more energy. So that's when growth and repair can happen. And then the other side of it, the downside of it, is catabolism. So have you ever heard of the word catastrophe? It's the same Latin prefix. So I remember that with catabolism to help me remember that that's the breakdown. So catabolism is like catastrophe. And that's the breakdown of larger molecules into smaller ones, and energy is released. So muscle contraction and heat production take place there. So heat production is a byproduct of catabolism, which is the breakdown side of metabolism. And we know that homeostasis is what? We've already learned that term.
Balance.
Yeah, that's balance, state of balance. So we do that, we have homeostasis because in our bodies, anabolism and catabolism can be carried out simultaneously. So because we always have things in our bodies building up and things breaking down, balancing those out at the same time creates homeostasis. If there's too much of one and not the other, then it becomes out of balance. And this might be a stretch, but if I ask you, I'll see, just testing your knowledge, see where we all are. I know people come from different places and what they've learned before in school and what they remember from school. But if I ask you, what's the substance that starts the metabolic process? Does that ring a bell for anybody? What is the substance that starts a metabolic process?
Sugar, glucose.
Oh, that's a good guess. It's kind of a fuel for some things, but not what I was looking
Okay,
for. All right, what I'm looking for is enzymes.
Oh, enzyme.
Enzymes, yeah, they kickstart metabolism processes. So enzymes are what gets it going, and I don't know, I just like that word. I don't even have anything else to help me remember the word enzymes. I just like the word because it's got a Z and a Y in it. Just makes me like it. So there's also something else important to know. So enzyme, you can write this down or rewatch the video and write it down. It's a definition. There are substances that start the metabolic process. And then ATP stores energy until it's released for muscular and other cellular activity. So ATP is what stores your energy in your cell so that you can use it for your metabolic processes. Let's see. Kind of zooming back out to where we kind of started from. The organs are made up of tissues, and so there's 5 categories of tissues. Epithelial tissues, like the skin. Connective tissue, like your tendons and ligaments. Muscular tissue, like muscles, cells. Nervous tissue, like your nerves. And liquid tissue, like your blood and lymph. And the way we start out when we are fetuses, feti, is that plural? I don't think so. Fetuses, we have some different categories of cells, but they're not differentiated yet into those epithelial, connective, muscular, nervous, and liquid tissues yet. There are 3 distinctive layers of cells called the endoderm. Endo means inner, so the innermost layer of cells is the inside, endo, E-N-D-O. The mesoderm, meaning middle, meso meaning middle, mesoderm. And the ectoderm, ecto meaning outer. So the ectoderm is the outer layer. So then those layers of cells will start all kind of the same, and then they start to differentiate after that into that. As I mentioned, I think on something in like the first week or maybe second week, a call about the way a fetus forms those dermatomes, the stripes that come out from each of the spinal column vertebrae that has a nerve that feeds it and that's got organs in it or parts of the body that all feed from that same nerve. So those dermatomes come during that time as well after differentiation. Epithelial cells, more specifically, are the thin layer that's responsible for absorption, excretion, secretion, and protection. And it's made up of several different types of cells. So breaking those down are 1, 2, and 3. 1 is the squamous cell, which is the flat cell. The cuboidal cell, which is cuboidal shaped, cube shaped, and it's small. And then the columnar cells are tall and rectangular. This epithelial tissue covers all surfaces of the body, both inside and out. And it forms your skin, coverings of your organs, and the inner linings of all the hollow organs. And it also makes up the major tissue of the glands. So it's all over your body. Epithelial tissue doesn't just mean your outside skin. It's all over your body. And then for our membranes, which make up a lot of the protective layers of our body, these are made up of either epithelial membranes or connective tissue membranes. So we'll talk about those. Epithelial membranes are composed of mucous membranes, like your what lines your digestive and upper respiratory tract. The stuff you don't want to touch with hot peppers on your fingers. Have you ever done that, where you were cutting jalapenos for some cooking and then you rubbed your eye or put your finger in your nose or something and you burned yourself, right? Ouch. So that's the mucous membrane that you've touched that is so sensitive to that. Mucous membranes and serous membranes make up epithelial membranes. And those are what act as a lubricant that allows the organs like the heart to move without getting stuck. So they're slippery so that organs can slide around and move against each other. And it slicks them up so that they can not stick to other organs and tissues in the body. And then you have connective tissue membranes. So connective tissue membranes are things like your fascial membranes that anchor and support your organs, as well as the membranes that cover bones and cartilage. So a couple examples of connective tissue membranes are the periosteum, which is that membrane that covers the bone. So it's a different kind of membrane than your epithelial membrane around your, the peritoneum, which is the stomach lining. It's different than that, but it covers the bone as a membrane. So it's protective, and it still helps you do the functions of it with connecting to your tendons and things like that, but it's a lot harder, strong, fibrous cartilage that attaches that connective tissue membrane. And then the perichondrium is a membrane covering cartilage. So over the top of cartilage, there's a perichondrium as well that covers it. Connective tissue is what binds structures together. It provides support and protection and serves as a framework. And there are 5 different types of connective tissue. So areolar tissue binds skin to underlying tissue. So areolar tissue helps your skin stick to things underneath it. It's a type of connective tissue. Reticular tissue helps form a framework for your liver and lymphoid organs. So the lymph nodes and the liver have connective tissue connecting them to each other. That is reticular tissue. Fibrous connective tissue forms your tendons and ligaments. So you can think of the word fibrous and realize it's a fiber. It's a long string-like connective tissue, and so that's going to help those tendons and ligaments attach, like spidey sense. What is that? Spider webs from Spider-Man. He sends out those like strings. You could think of that as how your fibrous connective tissue is forming your tendons and ligaments. And then, as we've already said so many times, you'll really have this memorized. Ligaments connect bone to bone, and tendons connect muscle to bone. Cartilage, there are 3 types of cartilage, which all vary in some degree of shape, support, and amount of shock absorption that they can do. So the three types are fibrocartilage, hyaline cartilage, and elastic cartilage. So one is fibrocartilage. That's found in between the vertebrae and the pubic symphysis, that little spot in the between of the two sides of the pelvis where they meet together. In areas where there's strong support needed and minimal range of motion is required, they can really be strong fibrocartilage there. Two is hyaline cartilage, Hyaline, and that's a little fibrous tissue found in places like the nose and the trachea and the ends of long bones and in your movable joints. It's the most common type found in the body, hyaline cartilage. It's in every movable joint, so you know there's a lot of it. And then elastic cartilage is very resilient, and it's found in the external ear and in the larynx. So the elastic cartilage is less common than hyaline cartilage. Fibrocartilage is also less common than hyaline cartilage. Muscle tissue is the type of tissue that forms muscles and allows your body parts to move. And there are three types of muscle tissue. So the muscle tissue types are skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. We've mentioned these before briefly, but we're going to hear it a few times so that it's easier to learn it. Skeletal muscle tissue is what is in your voluntary muscles that helps you move your limbs around on the body, as well as making facial expressions and speaking, so you consciously have control over your skeletal muscles. Oh, excuse me, facial expression. I don't always have conscious control, mostly conscious control. Smooth muscle tissue is the involuntary muscles that cannot be stimulated by conscious effort. So that's found in places like your stomach, small intestine, colon, bladder, blood vessels. Any hollow organs have that smooth muscle tissue. So it doesn't have all the striations, the lines, and the kind of grippy texture of skeletal muscles and cardiac muscles. It's smooth. So just helps those organs slip and slide around each other and helps them move what they need to move through them. And then cardiac muscle is only in the, what do you think it's in?
Heart.
And the heart. Yes. So cardiac muscle is only in the heart, and it's responsible for pumping the blood through the heart into your blood vessels. It's also striated like the skeletal muscle. It has like a stripy kind of texture. Nervous tissue, talking about other types of connective tissue, or other types of tissue, I should say. Nervous tissue is what transmits messages between body parts, which is composed of nerve cells, and the name for a nerve cell is a neuron, Neuron. A neuron is a nerve cell. And then liquid tissue in our body distributes the blood and lymph. So blood and lymph are liquid forms of tissue in our body. Blood carries nutrients and eliminates waste. So it has both good stuff in it that's going to our body, and it has bad stuff that's on its way out. Or hopefully it is. If you have dialysis, or if you need to have dialysis, if you have kidney failure, your blood is no longer emptying waste because your kidneys, the renal cells, the renal organs, or the kidneys are what filters your blood. So it isn't working properly. You have a buildup of toxic waste in your bloodstream. So you have to have dialysis, which is like a machine that pulls your blood through the machine, out of your body, into the machine, filters it for you like an external kidney, and then puts it back into your blood, into your body, so that it can be cleaned out and eliminate the waste for you. Lymph is found in the lymph nodes and the spleen. It's also found in the lymph vessels and in the body. So it's moved through the lymph nodes and into the spleen. And it's very important in the production of antibodies, which are helpful for what? Anybody have an idea?
Fighting infection.
Yeah, exactly. Antibodies are part of our immune system. Exactly. So we've learned about them more in our popular culture lately, looking for who's got antibodies for this coronavirus, right? We want to get them. We'd like to have them.
Coronavirus.
Yep, coronavirus antibodies would be nice because they would help us be maybe immune. We're not sure yet. I'm gonna flash a picture at you. I don't want you to get nervous about how many labels are on it, but we talked about different kinds of tissue. I just know you've all seen a picture of skin cells before, like epidermis and epithelium and simple squamous and cuboidal and stratified squamous and simple columnar. I'll show you. Here's a picture of some skin cells. You've all seen this. You know that that's what they look like, right? Looks familiar to you at least, right? Kind of familiar. Somewhat. But I also want you to become familiar with other kinds of cells. So when you have variety in cells and you have specialization of cells, then you get muscles that are cells that look different, like our muscle cells and our nerve cells. So here is a picture of some some muscle cells, particularly the skeletal muscle cells, and then the smooth muscle cells and the cardiac muscle cells. So first is the skeletal muscle cell. So this is a striated cell type that's in your voluntary muscles. So you can choose when to move these ones. Generally, they look more like this. And then once you get into an involuntary cell, the smooth muscle cells, it looks more like this. So the striated ones are more long, skinny fibers in our muscles. We know that muscles have fibers, right? We can feel them when we're starting to palpate on the body. When you get into the organs that are covered with a smooth cell type, it's more designed like this because they glide smoothly over each other. They don't have to contract the same way as our long muscle fibers for our skeletal muscles. So this is the smooth muscle type. And then for the cardiac muscle, they look even a little bit more different. They're more long and thin, but they're connected to each other in this kind of matrix of connected cells that contract for the heart to involuntary contract. We also have a little picture of liquid blood cells. So we know what those look like. Little round blood cells, like a little donut. And then a nerve
It's like half
cell.
of an avocado.
What's that?
So it reminds me of half side of an avocado.
Yeah, if you cut an avocado in half, it kind of looks like it. It's like the divot where the seed used to be, right?
Right. Yeah.
I love avocado. Yeah, makes me hungry.
Yes, me too. I eat one every day.
They are so good. I would too. I didn't appreciate this as a kid, but I used to have this giant avocado tree in my yard, and I didn't even really like avocados, but we did have like a dozen a day that would drop down at least, just tons of
Oh,
avocados
jelly.
all the time. And we would just like give them away. We didn't even know how to make stuff with it. Once in a while, we'd have some guacamole with our taco night, but we weren't really that big on avocados. And now it's like kicking myself. I wish I could just live in that tree.
That's hilarious.
So the nerve cell is like my favorite looking one of all. It's the craziest cell shape of all. So of all those other ones, now we've got a nerve cell. It looks like this. Ooh. Nerve cells. So those neurons have a whole different shape. They're more like a little, I don't know, cross between an octopus and a starfish with a tail. I don't know. There you go. So they have a cell body, which is that octopus type that, where's my finger? There we go. So this would be the body of the cell, and then the axon is the tail. So we'll get more into those when we get to the nervous system, but just want you to have an idea of some of the ways it looks and some of the parts of the names. You've heard them before at least, so when we do get into it more, it's not all brand new for you. I think the more you hear something, the easier it is to remember it. And And then when we get into muscle fibers, we have a lot more detail that we're going to go into, but this is the one I didn't want you to get nervous about. Not sure if I should show you. It talks about like a cross section of an arm to see all the different parts of the compartment that are in the arm. So of course there's the bone in the middle, there's the skin on the outside, and then there's muscle bodies inside, as well as nerves and blood vessels and things like that. I think a better way to show you this one will be on an actual PowerPoint slide, because this printout I have is going to be hard to read. So I'm going to spare you that one for now, but I will come back to that. We're getting close to our hour, so let me give you a little bit more info on cells and cell structure, the life's basic building blocks. The science or study of the structure of the body being morphology. We're going to study this as a general way of studying anatomy and physiology. We're studying morphology, the science and structure of the human body, the structure and form of organisms. So I would like you to know the order of the complexity of organisms. So meaning from atom to molecule to organelle to organ to oh, I said that wrong. Okay, from atom to molecule to organelle to cell to tissue to organ, organ system, organism. So I want you to know and be able to write that in order. Just know that which one is smaller and which one is larger than the other. Know the principal parts of the cell: nucleus, cell membrane, and cytoplasm. Mitosis and meiosis, you should know the difference between them. And you should know that I pee on a mat, IPMAT stages of mitosis in order. So interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. Did I give you guys a link to the crash course about mitosis? I know I watched it in my kitchen recently. I don't remember if I assigned it. I can look, but does anybody remember watching that yet?
No, I don't remember.
Okay.
No.
All right. So I'll send you a link to that because I like the way the crash course guy makes things entertaining. He throws a lot of info out there, but he uses fun illustrations and it really animates it, like literally animates it and makes it easier to remember. Plus you've heard it again another time and hearing it more helps you remember it. So I'll send you that.
Is he the one that you sent? You sent a video with that guy. He was like with his brother or something.
Oh yeah, I did. And it was about, so that was about like your genetic.
Oh, that was the earwax. Ew.
The earwax guy, that one. So he was talking about how you inherit traits. Forgot the name of the video, but yeah, that's what it was about. So it was getting you used to this kind of genetics, DNA and inheritance of dominant versus recessive traits from your parents. So that's kind of an introduction to this topic. And then we're going to get into mitosis and meiosis. Meiosis we'll talk more about when we get to the reproductive system, but we'll get started with that stuff on the crash course too. I would like you to know the two phases of metabolism are anabolism and catabolism. Know the difference between them. And that the basic unit of tissue is the cell. That tissues are collections of similar cells that carry out a specific body function. So when cells clump together similarly with other similar cells, they make up tissues. And then those tissues together can compose all of the body organs. And they are divided into the four main categories, which are epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, nervous tissue, and connective tissue. And then the two types of epithelial tissue that covers all the body surfaces inside and out are the mucous membranes, which aid in digestion, and the serous membranes, which acts as a lubricant. Then within the muscle tissue, there are 3 types. This muscle tissue provides the movement to the body, to muscles, and helps you move your body around. And so those 3 types are skeletal, which are voluntary, and smooth, which are involuntary, and cardiac, which are also involuntary. Skeletal muscles, what helps you move your limbs, your facial expressions, speech, other voluntary movements, or occasionally things like yawning, right? Not really that voluntary. And then smooth muscles are found in your stomach, small intestine, colon, bladder, blood vessels, any hollow organs. And then your cardiac muscle found in your heart. And then nerve tissue is composed of neurons, which are the kind of cells that are in the nervous system. And it's also found in the brain, spinal cord, and the associated nerves that come out of it. So all of that is your nervous system, and it's made up of neurons. And then your connective tissue, which binds together your structure, provides support and protection, and serves as a framework. So that can be categorized as loose connective tissue, dense connective tissue, and specialized connective tissue. And then there's liquid connective tissue, which is your blood, lymph, and the interstitial fluid, which is in between cells, in between vessels. So it's not quite in the lymph system, it's not quite in the circulatory system, it's just floating out there, and so it's called interstitial fluid. So you should also know from this lecture, you might want to rewatch it, know the definitions of adipose, fascia, perichondrium, periosteum, synovial membrane, mesothelium, morphology, metabolism, differentiation, and ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. So these are terms that I want you to become familiar with. You may want to write them down to help you study them. They may show up on a quiz at some point. And I think that's about it for this one. I'm going to post a test review sheet that you can use to help you study for a test on this chapter, which is going to be on, let's say Tuesday. I'll give you a couple of school days, but some weekend in there too, to review this call, review your chapter, and review this test review sheet that I'm going to post after the call. Does anybody have any questions?
So this chapter that you just discussed is out of the medical terminology book, or?
No, the medical terminology book does cover some of that stuff, but I'm talking about chapter 5, or sorry, I think it's in chapter 4.
Oh, okay.
It's from your
No, chapter 5.
Chapter 5, yeah, the beginning
We're
of chapter 5.
5. Yep, theory and practice.
Yeah, the intro, like introduction to cells and organisms section of the beginning of chapter 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My favorite stuff. All right. Have a good day.
Stuff. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. You too.
Rebecca. Dang it.